Hello and welcome to School Life Unpacked with me, your host, Natasha Curtis-Ego. Today I am filled with joy because I have someone returning to do another episode with me, and you may remember her, but I will allow her to introduce herself one more time for us, please.
Hi Natasha, and thanks for inviting me again. I'm Liz Keeble. I am head teacher at St Helen's Catholic Primary School in Westcliff.
So last time you were new to our school, so this is sort of to catch up and see where things are. 2 years on, how would you describe what's happened on that journey?
It has been a whirlwind, and I'm sure that if you spoke to the staff, they would agree. We have put lots of things in place. And I think I might have said before, I'm not the sort of person that can sit back. People talk about, what are you going to do in your first 100 days or just watch and wait. But I think if things need doing, if you don't address it there and then, you're kind of already behind. So I felt when we came back in September that we were really ready for this year. We had planned for new systems, new processes, new ways of working. And we had spent last year really practicing some of those things to make sure that when we came back in September, they were not embedded, but we were ready to roll, that we weren't kind of starting from scratch. And that has proved to be a really good strategy, the way that the staff are working, the changes that we've made. So a few things to the curriculum. We reviewed topics. So we reviewed history, geography topics, and to make them a little bit smarter so that it was a narrower focus and the children spent more time kind of really investigating different aspects of history and geography rather than having a long time on it and doing lots and lots and lots of different things. So that's been really interesting, and the work that the children are producing is brilliant because it's cross-curricular. So they're painting portraits from their RE lessons and they're talking about priests in their science lessons and things like that. So those kinds of approaches to learning make that learning more meaningful for the children. They can use their skills across the curriculum, and they've got a much better chance of remembering all of that than if they just have kind of sporadic lessons on things. So that's been really gratifying, really, to watch that develop. And we've had a few, obviously the values are now embedded. That was very new this time last year, but that's really embedded now, and the children talk about the values. They've got ownership of those. The staff are really deepening their understanding of the values. So that's been really nice too. And looking at ways that we can develop different aspects of the curriculum. We've been looking at English and maths, basic skills, really tightening the focus on those. And then the one thing that the staff have really appreciated, I'm not sure if the parents have appreciated it in quite the same way, the pupil progress conferences, because we are having a half-day closure for those. And from the staff's perspective, it's gold dust. The time is so invaluable for them to get together, LSAs, inclusion assistants, class teachers, to talk about the children's progress and really map out their next steps. Where has this child got to go to get to there? And where has this child got to, what have we got to do for this child to get them to there? And they're really important conversations, and giving the time to that, I think, gives it that, it elevates it, it gives it that importance, and including everybody in the school community, at least in the learning and teaching community, to be part of that. Everybody has a contribution. So although we're only 7, 8 weeks into my second year, it already feels like things have grown and strengthened and developed even in that short time. We've obviously got middle leaders now, heads of phase, that are driving those improvements. So that's been really good. I think the children are happy and enjoying a kind of a new approach to learning, really.
Has there been anything that has surprised you?
I think actually yes, because I think whenever you come into a community that is as established as this one is, and bear in mind the previous head had been here for 20 years, most of the staff come and never leave because it is such a wonderful place to work. I have been really humbled, really, by the reception that I've got in terms of staff and families and pupils really embracing some of those new ideas, even when it's been challenging, and really wanting to get behind it. You don't always get that in a school. Sometimes people that have been working in a particular way for a long long time can be resistant to new ideas, can be resistant to change. And that has not been my experience here at all. Everybody has been very positive and embraced kind of new ways of doing things, which has been lovely, really, because it's made my life very straightforward in terms of introducing new ideas. And some of the things that I've said, oh, shall we do this? People have said, oh, well, we did that before lockdown. So it'd be good to kind of reintroduce that, really. So, yeah, everybody's been very positive in a way that I hadn't expected, really.
Were you expecting resistance then?
Yeah, because I think you do. I think especially when you go into a school that is so well established and everybody's really happy. You know, everybody's very happy. The children are happy. Outcomes are good. The school functions very well. And you kind of think, actually, you don't want to change things for change's sake. But there are things that just enhance. It's like the icing on the cake, you know, or the cherry on top. It's those kinds of things. And that's been really lovely for me. My background is in school improvement, and I'm used to working in schools that are failing. So, and meeting that resistance. But actually here it's been lovely. Everybody's been wonderful and kind of got behind everything and been enthusiastic, and that's been lovely. That's been really lovely.
I suppose it's that want to bring out the best in the school. And you mentioned earlier not changing everything. I think sometimes if you change everything, that's when you meet the most resistance, because they're like, we have a system, but if you have those tiny improvements and everyone can see the benefits, they're quite excited for that change and growth.
Yeah, and I think that is the case. There are lots of things that the school has always done, that the school will always do, and there's no need to kind of tamper with any of those things. So I would say what I've looked at is just tightening certain things, maybe where things needed a little bit more rigour or needed to be a little bit more robust, not necessarily not working, but, you know, you want the bike that you're riding to be roadworthy. And, you know, sometimes you can get on a bike and it's fine, but it's much more comfortable if all of the tyres are inflated and the pedals are not going to fall off. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's that
definitely.
kind of thing, really. It's, you know, it's just about that. It's about inflating the tyres where perhaps things have got a little bit tired or people have lost interest in doing those things. That's the thing. It's about re-energising some of the things that we've done, because, you know, it has happened in the past. And you kind of think, actually, that was really good. So let's do it again, because that's what's good for the school community. You know?
So what are you bringing back? You mentioned, somebody mentioned, oh, we've done that before during COVID. What are you thinking of?
There's quite a few things. So we've talked about this International Day, because I'd said, oh, we'd like to do an International Day. And they said, oh, we used to do that, where the different communities would come and cook, and there'd be a big kind of celebration of international culture. I'd love to do something like that, because I think we're so lucky having such a diverse community. And there have been a few things, and now I can't think of what they are now off the top of my head. Having said that, there's been a couple of things where I've said, oh, let's do this, and people have said, oh yeah, we used to do that before COVID. And I think there are they are little things, you know, it's those tiny things kind of get lost. And unless there's a voice there saying, let's do this, let's keep doing this, somebody has to drive those things, and if they don't, then they get lost. So I think that, yeah, maybe some will come to me while we're talking.
Yep,
and I'll remember a few. But yeah, the main one was the International Day. So we will, and the kids want that as well. So the kids have talked about, oh, it'd be good to have an International Day. We've kind of we've got a slot planned for that. So as I was saying, we were talking about our geography and history topics. One of the geography topics is our global classroom. So the idea behind that later on in the year is that each class will look at the cultural heritage of the children in that class, look at the geography of the countries where their ancestors have come from, look at the food, look at clothes, look at language, so that they have a greater and deeper understanding of each other. So it could be that we tie it in with that. And I think that was the conversation that we were having, was let's kind of use that as a launch pad, really. It gives us a meaningful context to do that sort of thing in, rather than just have it as a bolt on, because that's always more difficult.
And it's quite nice because you can then bring the parental community together, and then they get to see a bit more of the school and its inner workings, and understand that the school appreciates their culture and their heritage.
Absolutely.
And values that in their children as they go to school with you. You know, because I think sometimes when you think of a faith school, you think that's all they're being taught. You don't realise that actually faith is so much bigger. So that's really lovely. We talked, I think last time, we mentioned a bit more about sport and things like that. So may I ask, the sporting carousel, if you could tell us a bit about that and explain why you wanted to implement it and how it's been going so far?
So it's going fabulously. The children love it, and the feedback from the children has been really powerful. And there were lots of reasons why I wanted to do it this way. I think firstly, PE didn't necessarily have the profile that I felt it deserved. And physical activity is so important to everybody's mental health and well-being. But if they can learn that at this age, hopefully they will carry those good habits with them through to adulthood. And making that connection between physical activity and mental health is really a top priority. So Daily Mile, that was one that they used to do, the Daily Mile, but that kind of fell by the wayside. So we've reintroduced that. So the children will do the Daily Mile every day. And then on a Thursday and a Friday afternoon, we have these carousels. So PE curriculum is fairly dry, for want of a better word. So it's full of netball, football, hockey, throwing, catching, jumping, cricket. But not all children like team games, and not all children have a desire to jump or to be particularly physical. But they can still do physical activity without having to do all of those things. It's about finding what they enjoy. So to supplement what they would be doing in the curriculum, and the other thing, I really wanted all the teachers to get back to teaching PE.
Okay.
Because prior to this year, we'd had people coming in to teach PE for us while the teachers had their PPA. And that's a fairly standard strategy. But I think that de-skills teachers, because I think we should all be role models for the children. And so the carousels take place on a Thursday and a Friday. We have 3 year groups on each afternoon, and each year group is divided into 3 groups of 20. So the groups are smaller, and they will have each year group will have 3 different activities to each other on that afternoon. So there are 9 PE activities going on a Thursday and 9 PE activities going on a Friday, because each year group has 3 of their own. So we've brought in some external providers to provide enrichment. So the teachers are teaching the curriculum stuff, the netball, the football, all of those kind of skill-based things. And the external providers are coming in and supplementing that. So on a Thursday, we've got gymnastics that is being taught by a specialist. With the best will in the world, most class teachers will not want to teach gymnastics because it's hard and you've really got to know what you're doing to get the best out of the children. So we've got someone coming in to do gymnastics using all the equipment in the hall. We've got a big crash mat coming, so they'll be doing tumbling and all sorts of twisting their bodies in various ways. So we've got gymnastics, we've got boxing on a Thursday afternoon, and then Westcliff Tennis Club loan us their tennis courts on a Thursday afternoon. So we have a group that go down there. So part of their physical activity is to walk to the tennis courts, have half an hour, and then they walk back. They do that for 3 weeks, and then they'll have 3 weeks of outdoor learning. So that's on a Thursday. Then on a Friday, we've got fencing with Little Musketeers. We've got dancing with Miss Millie. She comes in to do dance, so she'll do modern and kind of street dance and commercial. And we also have mini champs that do the boxing on a Thursday, do a cardio session on a Friday. So by the end of the year, all of the children will have had experience of 18 different types of sport and physical activity. And then of course they will all have swimming. So if they can't find something they enjoy out of that lot, we're kind of not doing our job properly, but they love it. And because it's at the end of the week, it gives them something to look forward to. They haven't got to worry on a Thursday or Friday after, and the teachers haven't got to worry about keeping the kids contained because they're tired by that end of the week. And actually having something like that that's very fast moving. Got half an hour on each of those activities. It's bosh, bosh, bosh. They haven't got time to worry about it. I guess they're fagged out by the time they get home because it is quite a full on, especially the year ones, bless them. But they have all really enjoyed it. And I think even the staff have enjoyed it, funnily enough. And I didn't expect that. I thought thought the staff might be, but lots of them have started running themselves or joined a gym. So it's kind of everybody has taken that message about the importance of physical activity to mental well-being, and they are very keen to be good role models for that. So that's been brilliant. It's been a very obviously difficult to organise. So I have to thank Mrs. Faulkner for her efforts on the timetable, because she has organised all of that, and it has run very smoothly, all things considered. We had a few issues in the beginning with the lunch hour and that kind of thing, but we've kind of got it down now. But yeah, that has been really popular with the children.
I think, like you said, introducing them to things that they wouldn't necessarily have done before has been the exciting part. I know my daughter's really enjoyed the netball. She would have done, but she really, really loves that, and the boxing, because I guess all kids like to hit really hard. I don't, but she really likes that, and it made me realise that, like you mentioned earlier, not all children enjoy team sports, and so it's nice to have things that are solo things that they can do, that they can enjoy, but still as a group, everybody learning together.
Absolutely. And also use it. What the other benefit of it is that because we have such a range of activities, they're using different muscle groups. So it's not just about they're getting a bit of cardio, they're getting a bit of core, they're doing, arm strength, there's agility in there with the fencing. So they are getting a range of activity, and invariably with team sports and ball games, that's fine, but they're all quite similar. It's strategic. It's that kind of, we've got to get a goal kind of thing. Whether you're playing hockey, netball, basketball, football, rugby, the idea is that you've got to get a goal. Whereas with things like fencing and tennis, you have to think more about that because it is more strategic. So you're trying to score points rather than get a goal, but you have to think it's just you. It's you and your sword, or you and your tennis racket. So in that regard, it's good for children to take responsibility for their own performance, which when you're playing team games, you don't get, because it's easy to blame someone else or blame the referee. But when you're doing things like fencing and tennis, it's you. Same with gymnastics. It's you. It's about you perfecting your technique and doing all of that. So they're getting a real range of everything, really, which is what I like about it.
So will you introduce other things as time goes on, or will you keep this as your 18 activities that rotate?
I think for a couple of years we'll keep it as it is, because I think they need 2 years, to really get to grips with it. And then I think we might introduce something else. We'll sub out something and introduce something else a bit further down the line. But I think, looking at the fencing, I remember in the beginning, the fencing guys were a bit, we haven't got many people signed up for the club. But actually it's bursting at the seams now, because I think as the children have gone on, they kind of go home, they're like, I really, really want to do the boxing, the fencing, and the boxing. So when I look in the hall, the clubs are now full, which is fabulous. It's really pleasing that the children have taken that on board in that way, and the families, because the families have got to pay for those clubs. They're not things that we're subsidising. So that's been brilliant, I think, and the children love it. When they came in to do the fencing assembly, we had the theme to Pirates of the Caribbean playing to give the kids a bit of context to it. But I think that's important for them, because they see that is sport. That is an Olympic sport. They're being taught by an Olympic competitor, and that's really good for the children. It's good role models for them.
With the sports carousel, you can see can you see the success of it, not just in the enjoyment, but have you noticed that the children are fitter? I know it's only a few months, so it's how many months have we been back?
Only
2 months?
Three
just
months. Coming up to 2.5, yeah. So we've only been back 10 weeks. Yes, there is a definite improvement. So my yardstick was last year when we had our pupil leadership election, I took the candidates down to Rossi for an ice cream. And when we walked back up the stairs, they struggled a lot. Those stairs are really hard, but I was way ahead of them. Now I'm a nearly 60-year-old woman, and I was thinking, this is, we've got to do something about this. And we've had lots, it's not just the PE carousel, we've had lots of, it is things like the Daily Mile that make that difference, and emphasising the importance of getting your heart rate up. But when I took the candidates this year, they ran they ran up the stairs. So I was way behind. And I thought,
that's
this is how it should be.
Yeah.
So that was how it should be, really. And they wanted to do that. It wasn't, they weren't kind of moaning about walking up the stairs. They literally just whoosh and were straight up. So it's little things like that. Things like, you know, the boys' football team went out on Wednesday to compete in the Catholic Year 5 and 6 boys tournament and came third. Mr. Gibson was saying that's the highest that they've ever achieved in the time that he's been teaching at the school. And I think that is down to the input that they're getting in the clubs, because the work that they're getting from mini champs on the football, the fitness that they're getting from elsewhere, all of that, even thinking of strategy through fencing, all of those skills that they're learning are going to play a big part. And that was our first tournament this year. So we were really proud of the boys for really making a difference with that.
Which is amazing to hear, because I think trying to get children active can be a challenge for parents at home. But if they've got it at school, it's then the children coming home and saying, we did this, why don't we go and do that at home? And it kind of re-inspires family to try and be fitter together.
I hope so. I mean, ultimately, that would be brilliant. I think going forward, we will look at developing strategies around that. I'd like to do a Fitness Friday campaign where parents come in the morning and do some fitness with the children, and even maybe get the whole of Southend involved in a Fitness Friday campaign to get everybody out there, because we've got such a wealth of opportunity in Southend. You know, we're by the river, we've got the seafront, there are water sports, we've got a football team, we've got cricket pitches. You know, there are lots of opportunities for people to get out there and get active, and it is really important. You know, it is. I could talk about that all day about the importance of physical fitness, but yeah. So I think in the longer term, we'd like to drive some more kind of initiatives like that and get parents involved, get parents coming in and maybe doing some boxing, have some parent sessions.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and to get because I think it would be good for the parents to see exactly what the children are doing, because you hear about it, you might see pictures, but actually getting in and having a boxing session yourselves, or, you know, doing a bit of fencing could be really good. So yeah, watch this space.
I look forward to it. It'll be good fun. So with our community, and so we've talked about the sports and bringing the sports into the community, that brings us beautifully to the diversity of our community. You and I were talking a little bit earlier about an idea, an initiative you'd like to start with the school. If you'd like to mention that would be amazing.
So I'm very aware that whilst we are a Catholic school, we have lots of families that come from diverse Catholic backgrounds, and that there are feast days in other cultures that are celebrated that we wouldn't necessarily celebrate in Britain. So one of those that instantly comes to mind for me is the 6th of December, which is St. Nicholas, Feast of St. Nicholas. And I know in Belgium and in other countries on the continent, they hang socks on their door, on their bedroom door handle, or put shoes outside their bedroom door for sweets from St. Nicholas. So I think it would be really interesting to get parents together from different cultural backgrounds to share some of those traditions from their heritage. You know, Donut Day, I know they have in Poland, that's what it's been called to me, Donut Day in Poland, and you know, the Spanish speaking communities would have Day of the Dead instead of Halloween. You know, we'd look at All Saints Day and All Souls Day. And I think it would be really good for the children to have an understanding of, yes, this is our faith and this is what unites us. But actually, as people and as a different culture, we can put emphasis on different things. And I'll never forget, I went on holiday to Portugal many years ago, and we were away on August the 15th, which is the Feast of the Assumption. And on the beach in front of our flat where we were staying, these guys came out at like 6 o'clock in the morning and started putting stuff down on the beach. And I said, what are they up to? They were putting fireworks down. So they must have had £20,000 worth of fireworks out on this beach, because it was the Feast of the Assumption. And later that day, there was this massive procession through the town, you know, with this statue of Mary and everything coming through the town, and everybody ended up on the beach. And then there was this humongous firework display. I thought, we don't really do anything like that. As Catholics in the UK, we don't have the same, you know, we perhaps don't celebrate Mary in the same way. So I just think that sort of thing would be really interesting to enrich the children's understanding of their own faith, because it can become it's about variety, isn't it? It's about variety. Same as with the sport. It's about them having a diet that is going to enrich their understanding of different celebrations in the Catholic Church that are celebrated differently in different corners of the world. So at the moment, I'm kind of thinking of calling it the Global Catholic Culture Forum, but it's a bit of a mouthful. So I'm sure it will change at some point. But I'm very keen to get that going and to get families involved. And I think using our Catholicity to do that and to unite families can only benefit the whole community, really.
Definitely, and it will allow us to see that we're the same, but we're different, but we're the same at the same time. So it's sort of uniting the things that make us different so that we can appreciate what makes us the same.
Absolutely.
It sort of sounds like a contradiction, but you know what I mean? That kind of...
It's true. And I think that's really what keeps the church alive, is that diversity. It is different communities bringing different things and seeing different things to celebrate, and making bigger things of that. I know over the last few years in the UK, there's been a resurrection of Corpus Christi processions. So, for Corpus Christi, the body and blood of Christ, there's a massive procession in the West End, on the Feast of Corpus Christi that starts in Soho, of all places, and literally goes across Regent Street, across Oxford Street, and then up to Edgware. And it's huge. There are literally thousands of Catholics that join that procession. And I think we need to do more of that. We need to be a bit bolder and let people know that we're here. And I think we started that last year we did the pilgrimage along the seafront. So we had all the schools come together, all the schools in the trust came together to do the Pilgrims of Hope. So we had a pilgrimage along the seafront, and, the children were desperate to carry the cross and all that sort of thing. And I think it's times like that when you see their commitment to their faith. We don't always see that when they're studying geography or English, but actually in a context like that, giving them the opportunity to really express their faith and what it means to them, I think is important. And we need to do that on a much bigger scale, I think.
Do you think it also allows them to put their faith into context as well, to appreciate it that little bit more, that it's not just going to church on Sunday and happening to go to a Catholic school? It's sort of allowing them to celebrate all aspects of it and bring it to life.
It's exactly that, Natasha. It is exactly that, because again, it can become very dry and narrow, and if we're not encouraging the children to participate in different types of liturgy at different times of the year for different reasons, then we're not fanning the flames of that faith, and we need to keep that going. So I think it is precisely that. It's about them realising that it's much broader than just going to a Catholic school or just going to church on a Sunday.
So now we've come to that point where I'm going to ask the question, where are we going from here? What is next for St Helens?
What is next for St Helens? Well, I think this year the staff are really going to appreciate a year where things are a bit calmer. We have a big capital project starting obviously after Christmas with the front of the school. We're getting the railings put in. In terms of the curriculum, the next step is digitisation. So we will be looking at integrating technology across the curriculum so that the children are able to set up something like this and have an interview with somebody. So we're in the process of upgrading our infrastructure. So the cabling and everything, the internet was improved over the summer holidays and over half term. The staff will be getting new laptops very soon. And then we've got a consultant coming to work with us on upskilling the staff and training them to use things like Google Classroom, which will revolutionise the way the children learn, because they will have access at home to everything that they have at school. So it will make that learning a lot more seamless. Things like homework become, the children from experience, the children become more motivated to extend their learning at home because they are learning on a platform that is kind of a bit more attuned to how they learn these days. children are very good with technology, and we have to embrace that. We have to embrace, there are going to be very few jobs that they go into where they're going to use a pen to write. They need those skills. On a keyboard, there will be a lot more audio-visual careers in the future in terms of web development, app development, gaming, all of those things, photography, film, even journalism is exploding on YouTube because people are realising that they're not necessarily getting a true picture from mainstream media that is heavily edited. We've had that's very topical at the moment. But it's important that children understand how to use it well, what the dangers are, and how to navigate the dangers. We've got to give a much deeper, much more coherent curriculum around that so that the children are able to sift for themselves through fake news. Where does this come from? Fact checking, all of those kinds of things. They really do need those skills these days to navigate the internet. So that's kind of that will be the next big move, is the migration towards more technology in their learning.
As exciting as that is, I can imagine people going, what about screen time? How do we keep them safe? How do we encourage that natural progression? Because we don't want our children to be computer illiterate. But then we don't want to open the floodgates and sort of allow everything in.
Sure, and I think it's around education. I think we find more and more that parents are getting left behind in terms of that journey, and children do spend far too long on screens, whether that's a phone or whether that is a tablet or whatever. But I think if we educate children around the usage of that and what are we actually using it for. I mean, I know myself, my phone, I very rarely use it to make a phone call, but I use it to shop. I use it for emails. I use it for research. I use it for communication. I will record things on there. So if we're learning a new song in singing practice, I'll use it as a recorder. So technology has lots of different applications, and it's making sure that children are aware of what those applications are and judicious use of that they're not just using it willy-nilly, that they're using it with purpose and for a reason. I think I'd love all of them to be able to set up a little podcast like this and to create an interview with Henry VIII, as part of their history topic. Now, King Henry, well, you've ripped the Catholic Church apart and that kind, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because I think it's so much more creative,
yes,
and so much more in line with how they learn these days, So it is coming. It will be a lot easier for teachers to plan, to design targeted activities for the children that are really meeting their needs in the moment, because you can do all that literally at the push of a button and extend children or redesign an activity that's going to help them get to the next stage in their learning or help them reinforce things. So I think as a teaching tool, it will be fabulous. And of course, there are lots of, what's the word I'm looking for? There are lots of controls in place. So children under 13 are not allowed to use AI. So we would not be using generative AI in school. It will be around the old-fashioned ICT. It will be around word processing, spreadsheets, control and modelling, those kinds of things, computer programming and presentation, audio-visual stuff. So we're not going to be teaching the children to work with generative AI because that would be against the law, and we don't want to do that.
Well, no, and it's not what they need. What they need is what you've mentioned. They need the word processing, the spreadsheets, and they need to know how it works and how they can utilise it to be able to then apply it later on in life.
Absolutely.
So I can see the benefits. I can see also a few people being a bit like, oh, are we there yet? But I wonder if that's, like you said, parents being left behind and not being as up to date with new technology as perhaps we need to be.
I think there's an element of that, but I also think that our profession is behind. I mean, we did this almost 10 years ago at my last school. So we were already on that journey 10 years ago, and the children were already using Google Classroom. So when lockdown happened, it was quite easy for us to move to remote learning because the children were already using it on a daily basis in the classroom. So I think it's about where priorities lie.
Yeah.
And I think we cannot hold back. We can't turn back time.
No.
We are where we are, and we have a responsibility really as a school to make sure that the children know how to use that, as I said, judiciously really, and with discernment, which is a very Catholic concept actually. It's being discerning about things, being able to make informed decisions about whether or not this aligns with our values. It's about that. It's about bringing it back to the values and thinking, if I am making up stories or, not reporting an event in a moral way. I mean, that comes up all the time, even now in journalism, when children are looking at bias reporting. They learn that already, looking at newspaper reports and learning how to write newspaper reports. So that's been in the curriculum for years. So that's really just translating that element of that learning into what we have now, which is taking that one step further and really interrogating sources and making sure that we are putting forward the truth,
How will that fit in with the children who perhaps don't have that technology at home? Because if you're having the Google Classroom that can now be used for homework, how are you going to support the children who perhaps don't have that accessibility at home?
So that's something that we would have to explore. I think there will be children that won't have access to that, and that's something that we will have to look at when the time comes. This is not going to happen overnight,
obviously.
This is going to be something that will take place over several years.
Okay.
This year is about getting the infrastructure ready and making sure that the staff are fully equipped to teach in that way and use those strategies. And then next year it will be around providing one-to-one devices for the children in school so that they can use that all the time across the curriculum. And the new curriculum that is coming in under this current administration will require IT to be used across the curriculum. So we'll have to do it whether we want to or not. So we're better off getting ahead of that rather than being left behind when the time comes, really.
Is the new curriculum extremely different from the old one, or is it?
We don't know really at the moment what it's going to, where they're going to land. The curriculum review has been published. We know that there is going to be a greater emphasis on technology. We know that it's still going to be what they call knowledge driven. So there still will be an element of learning knowledge. It used to be in the old days more skills based. But they are going to retain an element of an emphasis on knowledge acquisition. But other than that, we're not 100% sure what it's going to look like. There have been recommendations, and there will be a document published at some point that we will all look at and think, okay, so this has changed and that's changed, but we're going back 20, this is something we did 20 years ago. That always happens. So with whatever curriculum that comes in, it won't be vastly different because children there's only a finite set of skills that children need, really. So that's not going to look very different. It's just what this current administration deemed to be important in terms of knowledge.
Okay, so I suppose it would be prioritising what they feel is needed at this current moment.
Yeah. And what the content will look like. So yeah, it will be interesting. There will invariably be an increase in expectation because there always is when a new curriculum comes in. So there will be things that were once expected much further up the education system that will probably come down into primary because that always happens. But that's not a bad thing. Our children are like sponges, and they love learning. So they brought something, one of the kids said today, and I said, they've been learning about a person in their science lesson. I said, who is that? I'm not sure I know who that is. So it's good that they research these people and that they're teaching new things. I think that's the point, really, is that, the body of knowledge doubles every 9 months or whatever it is. We cannot hope ever to learn everything, but they need the skills to be able to research what they need to know when they need it. And that's kind of what the drive will be, really.
It's exciting. It's exciting to have the opportunity to grow the school. It's exciting to hear that whatever change is brought in, the school are willing to embrace it and implement it. But I love the idea that you're going to try and get ahead of the curve with the technology. And it's also refreshing to know that at least our children at this age will have the skills to go on, without feeling a lack of knowing how to use a tablet or the keyboard, because like you said, it's going to be a basic skill if it isn't already.
It is really, and I think that's the exciting. I mean, we're not intending to abandon pens and pencils anytime soon. It will be to enrich what they're already doing. And actually, for some children who struggle with handwriting, because it is a very difficult skill, for some of those children, having the opportunity to type things or even just to speak into a tablet and have the tablet turn your speech into text can really revolutionise the learning for some children, because the emphasis should be on what they're able to produce in their mind, not necessarily how they translate that onto the written page. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You've got children that are very imaginative and can tell a story, but actually may not have the skills to be able to write that down. So giving them a tool that enables them to make sure that what's in their head gets down onto the written page, they can then edit that, but eliminating the bit in the middle that is the struggle. Why would you not want to do that for your children?
The question is, I suppose, that's wonderful, but what happens to things like spelling if the computer's correcting it and those kind of skills? Will they get lost along the way, or do you think? I don't
think so. I think because you have to be able to spell to know whether spell check is correct or not. So you have to know the difference between Americanism as an example, and things like spell check. We would disable that, so all of those things can be disabled, so that the children are applying what they know. But it's important in some instances for the children just to be able to be creative and not worry about the spelling and not worry about the punctuation and come to that afterwards, because that can stifle their creativity. And then their understanding of what writing is becomes a source of stress for them, especially boys. Boys don't get a lot out of that at all on the whole. So to implement a strategy that would promote creativity above neatness and accurate spelling and punctuation could revolutionise the way some of those children approach that. So again, watch this space.
Oh, I'm excited. We'll have a St. Helen's Kids YouTube kind of thing going on within a few years.
Yeah, a nice little channel would be good for the children to produce. I've already got one of the year sixes lined up to do some interviews, 60-second interviews for our Facebook page.
Oh, that's exciting.
So that they can begin to think about that creativity and what does it mean to interview someone and what kinds of questions are going to be best to ask them. So little things like that. I think even having a radio station where they did broadcasts and things like that could be really exciting for them. But that will be that's a few years down the line.
I can understand that it takes time for things to grow, but I have really enjoyed having our catch up of where the school is and where it's going, and I get really excited to know what our school is doing. So I hope everybody else gets that excitement, because you can see the energy and you can feel it, and you want to be more involved once you know a little bit
that's
more.
Really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode, and we truly appreciate you listening. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, subscribe and follow to stay updated on future episodes. We look forward to seeing you next week.